I don't think many can even comprehend what life is like growing up with an alcoholic father. Welcome back to Irrepressible, ordinary people with extraordinary resilience. And in this episode, I'm speaking to the incredible Huw. Huw talks about his life with his alcoholic father, how at one stage as an adult, Huw had to cut his alcoholic father out of his life for a period of time, and how that felt when he eventually lost his dad. Huw talks with vulnerability, passion, and courage about how he's dealt with that in his life, some of the more unhealthy coping mechanisms, how he's spent time in his life pushing down and burying emotions, how the public viewed that as being a strength of his, and how eventually he's finding space in his life to be able to process and deal with his emotions in a more of an effective way. If you're a child of an alcoholic, then this episode is absolutely for you, but there's also so much that anybody else can take away in terms of building that resilience and finding and understanding what it means to you in your life. This is a really, really good episode. It's great, particularly to see a man talk in the way that Huw does and express the things that he does with such honesty and clarity. And I really hope that you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're new here, then please make sure that you've subscribed and you turned on those notifications so you know each and every time that I post a video. And listen, if you'd like to be on Irrepressible, get in touch with me because this is all about interviewing ordinary people with extraordinary resilience. Today, joined by Huw. Huw, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Josh. Very well, thank you.
Good. I'm looking forward to this. Rather than me introduce you, why don't I let you just quickly tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are?
Yeah, cool. So my name's Huw. I'm 39 years old, married with 2 kiddies, got a 7-year-old boy and a 11-month-old girl. I work in media for a media agency, and I've done that for longer than I care to remember. Kind of me.
Said with loads of enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, I love my job. To be fair, it's fantastic. It suits my personality traits, so it's good.
Good. And today we're here to talk about resilience, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to jump into today. So why don't I kick it straight off, jump straight in, and ask you
Yeah, cool.
to just tell us what it is that you've been, what you've experienced in your life that's meant that you've had to be resilient.
Yeah, so obviously when we first met was when you did something for our company, like a lunch and learn type thing, and it's it was really enlightening for me because it kind of something that had been on my mind and trying to get through for a long time, kind of it brought to the forefront and did something about it. But my story, I suppose, is ever since I can remember, I grew up with an abusive alcoholic father, a father who had a dependency on alcohol. It wasn't all the time, it wasn't constant. It would it'd be at random times, but it was I suppose that was probably one of the hardest parts is living with that anxiety the whole time and not knowing who was going to walk through the door, whether it was my dad or whether it was going to be this Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde kind of vibe. So went through that from as long as I can remember, really. And it was strange because I know when reading some of the other stories on the ACOA site, that almost that pantomime and that act you put on that something could, your dad was tearing up the house and smashing things up and throwing things at you and your brother and your mother one night, and then you go into school the next day and you're pretending to be normal. It's almost going into like an act and a default of how you want to behave. You don't want to be seen to be different. You don't want to seem to be, almost get that pariah status around you because they're living in a happy family and the mum and dad are fine, all that kind of stuff. So, that was strange growing up. And it got to a point where my parents eventually separated when I was about 14, I think it was. And that was great. There was no longer that. It kind of hit its peak when my mum came home from work one night and my brother and I were fighting my dad in the back garden because we'd got to that age where we're just like, we've had enough of it now. my dad was an army man, so it was wasn't the easiest situation to be in, but brother and I just got to the breaking point and couldn't take it anymore, and it just got to that point. And Mum said, "I can't do this anymore. I've been trying to do this, keep the family together." She thought she was doing the right thing for us, but it definitely wasn't. Should have parted ways a long time before that.
Yeah.
So that came to a head then. Dad moved out. Parents got a divorce, but it was almost then that constant calls late at night, drunken calls from him, calling my mum all the names under the sun, what she'd done, taking a house from him, divorce, taking everything from him, blah blah blah, and that went on from 14 until I was about 20, 21. And I left school after A levels. Didn't do amazingly well. With that, I wouldn't say it's related to that. It was more kind of my headspace at the time, I think. But certainly through those teenage years, I was an angry teenager. I would fly off if I was out on a night out and probably had a drink or whatever. I could get quite aggressive, and I could say that's not my personality. I'm a an amiable, friendly guy. I'll normally the joker and like to be liked by everybody. I suppose typical sort of Gemini trait, if you believe in that kind of stuff. With that, one of the kind of coping mechanisms I adopted was throwing myself into other people's problems rather than sort of addressing my own. So all of my mates through teenage years, any angst or problems and stuff they had, I could give all the best advice and I'd listen, and I was there and that stuff. But not listening to any of my good advice to myself, through those times. But it got to a point of kind of these constant calls, any time of day, night, from my dad. Got to about 2021. Been working from when I was about 19 full time, starting to carve out a career, starting to have my goals and objectives that I wanted to achieve in life, and that really sort of coming through. And this constant negativity that kept coming up, and I didn't know when it was going to be, and it was affecting my work because I'd get a call at 2-3 in the morning, and because you want to be there for your dad, and you want to help them through it, and you feel this responsibility to try to fix them, I suppose. I was there, and I was constantly there, and I was putting myself there, offering to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings with him, which he would, be like, "Oh, you'd really do that?" I'd be like, "Yeah, of course I'd do that, 100%. No, I want to see you get better." But just got shut down every time. Every time that it was that night at the meeting, and I was like, "Well, what time shall I meet you?" I said, "Oh, no, it's not on tonight," or I'm not going this time. And there was constant lies coming from him, and it just got to a point. I was 21. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't have the mental capacity to do this anymore. It's too stressful. It's causing me too much anxiety. And I just spoke to him, and I said, "Look, until you sort yourself out, I've offered help to you. I've tried to help you. You throw it back in my face. I'm not interested in seeing you again until you sort yourself out. Hopefully that kind of tough love will make you realise what you're losing, because when I have kids, you're never going to see them, unless you sort yourself out." Sorry. And then so I hadn't heard from him for about four years. I got a phone call from a nan one morning when I was at work saying Dad had a massive stroke and he was in hospital and I needed to come. My dad, in one of these drunken phone calls, had told me that he'd been diagnosed with cancer. I didn't believe him because I thought it was just another lie and another ploy to try to pull me back in. He did actually have cancer, and it was the cancer had caused the stroke. So we got in the hospital on the Tuesday. Doctors told us that he literally had days to live, and then I stayed there till the Saturday when he passed away. Managed to, have a heart-to-heart with him, which was kind of good through the morphine-induced state he was in. But I found what I'd done my entire life, and the realisation I'd kind of done my entire life, was almost this I created a coping mechanism of burying emotions. And I think when you're in an environment where, you know, the night before it's like Beirut in your house, you know, and it's all going off, and then the next morning or the next evening when you all see each other again, everything's back to normal. It was a weird kind of contrast. So you kind of start to accept that as a norm. So you kind of be like, right, well, I'm emotional at this time, and then I'm all right again at this time. And it kind of got to that point where you push those emotions down, and you almost compartmentalize them. And what I've found that has done to me by having that coping mechanism is there's a joke my wife and I have in the fact she kind of says to me, you know, I lack empathy, and not that I'm a psychopath or anything like that, but you know, I'm not out there standing in pools of blood and not wincing, but you know, it's you know, I don't get emotional about situations. I'm very rational, and that's because I don't react in an emotional way, because I've been so used to sort of burying that emotion down, I suppose. I mean, she calls me, she says I'm emotionally retarded, but you know, I think it's, you know, we joke about it, but all friends and stuff say like how you handle situations. Like, I'm really envious of how, you know, it doesn't affect you emotionally, and you can be really rational about it. They see that as a strength. I see that as an absolute weakness, because what I found, certainly when we started chatting after your talk, is I realised it's not a way to live. You know, it's not. And I'm finding that the older I was getting, the less connected I was emotionally with things. So I knew how to start changing things to pull that back, because, you know, moments with my children that would normally should be like a national emotional rush of feelings and stuff felt really numb, and you know, my emotions were slowly getting number and number and number, and I was just like, I don't want to live my life like this. I don't want to be that disconnected person, because I'm trying to cope with what's happened in my past, and that's the only way that I've known how to do it since I can remember, like 3-4 years old, you know. So I think, you know, I've carried quite a lot of guilt around with my dad's situation, not believing him as well, and it's only through taking some time and reconnecting emotionally with myself that's allowed me to sort of address that and you know, move on from it and progress with it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the hardest things to do is to like understand your own. When you talk about feeling that guilt, I have no doubt if somebody had have told you the story that you've just told me, your first thought would be there's no guilt on your part whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not your fault. Yeah.
But when it's ourselves, for some reason, it just becomes so much more difficult, right? To kind of connect with that. And I really, really relate. You probably know I do, but I relate to that pushing down and burying the emotions, and how actually, particularly if you're quite an emotional person, right? Which is, I was the same, right? People used to say to me, it's amazing how you just nothing affects you, right? And the truth is I'm a highly emotional person. I'm really emotional. So the fact that I'm not showing any emotion is not, and the worst part is that you've said this and what you said there, you don't get to choose which emotions you suppress. So if you're suppressing emotions, you suppress them all. And then I started to realize I'm missing out on feeling big moments with my children that I really want to feel. And I knew what to say. I knew how to, you know, I knew when I should feel good. So I knew that I should say that I feel good. But I also knew I wasn't feeling it.
That's exactly it. You know how you should be feeling, and you're just like, but I'm not feeling it. Or you're feeling a degree of it, but not to the level that you know you should be, you know, or that you could see other people reacting to. And I think that's the problem. You almost feel like there's this filter that's just blocking. You're looking through a glass filter. You can see it all, and you want to be that side, but it's just kind of hitting that filter and not getting through.
Yeah, I used to say that when I was younger. I used to say, like, I feel like I'm in a glass box. When I was like, I remember when I was a teenager, I used to say like that. I used to say, like, I was really good at having loads of people around me and being like, it's not that I wasn't very good at making friends. I just wasn't very good at connecting with. I didn't really connect. It was all fake. It all felt fake and
Right. Yeah.
like, acted. So how do you feel like, what do you feel like's enabled you to get through it? Because really, listen, for me, the reality is for you to be sat there as a man that has a family, has a house, has a career, is raising children. I see that as incredible with what you've been through. And I know from speaking to people that have been through the same experiences as you, that you likely, when I'm saying this, feel like, well, it's just par for the course. That's just kind of what I've done. But what you went through is, huge, huge to have gone through that as a child. And look, my dad died when I was 9, right? And one of the things and this is very strange for me to say, I almost feel lucky that he died when I was a child, and I didn't have to do my adult years of trying to build a family and a career with him turning up and me with my adult mind having to make that decision that for my well-being, the only thing I can do is cut him out of his life. That's, people won't understand why I say I feel lucky for that. Having spoke to people that have got, like, when I hear that you had to go through that as a young man, I think it's incredible, genuinely.
Yeah, but thank you. I mean, yeah, I think, anybody that's gone through it, I get why you would say that, but then I would probably also think that was harder as well, and certainly what you went through as well. You always, you kind of dumb down what's happened to you because it's kind of, it's
the only way you'll survive as well. It's the only way you'd survive. You can't. The pain's too much to bear, almost. And it is true what you say about your own story, because I remember when I used to tell people, what I've been through and stuff like that, and I'd see their face change, and I'd be like, "What's the matter?"
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? And
it's your norm at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
You could see that it's different for other people, but it was your norm at the end of the day. It was just like, well, that's what I mean. It's I always, and I remember from a young age, like, had it in my head. It's just like, my family will never go through this. When I have a family, they will never go through this. I'll never allow it to happen. It's quite strange on how it affects two people. And there was an article I was reading on the ACOA site of the two brothers, and how differently it affected them. It's exactly the same for myself and my older brother. My older brother probably, as we got older, took more of the brunt of the abuse during that time, because he was the one that would get in between myself and my mum more. So my dad would focus on him. They went away for a weekend once because my dad was military, as I said. They went away to Normandy to do all the trenches and all of that kind of stuff. I can't remember what it's called anyway. And they came back from the weekend, and my dad had a massive black eye. And we were like, what the hell happened? He was just like, oh, he fell in the trenches and hit his face. My brother had punched him with what had happened. So that's quite strange. Now, my brother has exactly the same relationship with alcohol as my dad. Yeah. Whether that's a chemical imbalance, I don't know, something along those lines. I'm really, really, really proud of him, because he's got 2 kids, he's married, and he's joined Alcoholics Anonymous, and he's, like any addict or any dependent, he has wobbles, he fall off the wagon. But it's normally when he stops doing the meetings, but you go back to the meetings and he's back on track again. And he's a different person. The similarities in terms of him on alcohol and my dad on alcohol were scary. Yeah. Scary. So then I found myself pushing myself away from him. So I was like, I don't want that. I don't want that again. I don't want that again. I had that, and I don't want to see it. So one of the things, as I said, is I said I would never ever go through that with my family. One of the things that I think kept, like, coming back to your point in terms of how I've been achieved what I have in my life and been resilient with it, a lot of that is down to the people around me, I think, and my environment. I had a really good set of friends. I'm not a religious person now, but at the time, certainly in my teenage years, I could have gone completely wayward had it not been for Christian youth group that I was involved in. It just surrounded me with good people, great adults that were looking out for you and had your had your best interest at heart. That really, really helped me through, because it kind of showed me I was, don't get me wrong, I was still a bit of the black sheep of that of that group, but
Yeah, but of course, but that space did so much for you.
yeah,
I think that's a huge point. And imagine we lived in a country that funded youth services to do what that Christian group did, and every child just got access to that. And
it transformed lives. It
yeah,
transformed,
yeah, exactly, yeah,
you know, it's yeah, that was the biggest thing for me, and just the determination that I wasn't gonna end up like that.
yeah,
I wasn't gonna do that. Were the biggest sort of motivating factors
yeah.
for me.
It's so common. It's such a common thing that I hear when I talk to people about being resilient and what pulled you through. Nearly everyone will say the right people around you, right? I think community is
Yeah,
just so important, yeah. And if you look at like the history of man and stuff, when they go back and how we used to be raised in tribes and stuff like that, right? And when we were raised in tribes, you didn't really have many mental health issues because everybody was supporting each other. And
yeah,
you know, community is something that is disappearing more and more and more, right? I mean, I knew the neighbors this side. I didn't really know many people down my street until we went into lockdown and we started going out the front to clap and that every week. And it was like, I've lived down here nearly 6 years now. There's that should be a community to me, and I don't know anyone down there, so I do think, having people around you and having a good circle is really important.
yeah.
And then,
It was.
and so I guess bringing it on to the last question that I like to ask is, what through everything that you've been through, and I guess are still going through to a degree, for me it's always like a lifetime journey, right? But up until this point, what do you feel like you've learned about yourself as a person?
The biggest things, I feel like a bit of a fraud coming on here and talking about resilience, and because I'm not, but what I used as resilience, or what methods I used to be resilient and not let it completely blow my brain out my ears, wasn't the right thing to do. In terms of burying that emotion down. That's what made me resilient, is I cut myself off emotionally. I'm now feeling the long-term effects of that, but this is what I'm trying to change and rebalance, but what I found has really, really helped me in terms of kind of rebalancing side of things is just being more aware and having to admitting to myself that I've got a problem and trying to rectify that. So what I found has really helped is verbalizing it, is no longer keeping it inside and keeping it to myself, and realizing that, if you're lucky enough to have people around you that care about you, that talking about it is actually a good thing. It helps them to understand your behaviors, rather than, my wife thinking that I'm just not emotional, I'm not emotionally available for her, and that kind of stuff. She's starting to understand why I behave like that, but can see that I'm trying to change it. So that's the thing. And as I kind of said to her, it's like, that's all I know. That's all I know how to cope.
Yeah.
That's all I've done. That's all I know how to do. I've got to retrain myself now. I've got to change my behaviour, because that's what I've done since I was an infant.
Yeah.
But yeah, listening to you on that work thing was a pivotal moment for me, in terms of typing that question that Mark asked you about how do I connect when I've been through a similar thing. How do I reconnect emotionally?
Yeah.
I was shaking. I was literally shaking when I wrote it, and I felt sick because I thought it popped up and everyone had seen it, but luckily it was private. But just having that bravery to take that step, and admit you're not all right.
Yeah.
It's more cowardly to I think, people may disagree, but to sit there and just keep it all in and keep it to yourself. It takes so much bravery to step outside of that and go, I'm not all right. I want to change. I need help.
Yeah.
But being able to talk about my story, I put a story on the website earlier today, on the ACOA website earlier today, and talking about it, it's so cathartic to be able to put it into words. I wrote it yesterday, and there were points I was crying, and
Yeah.
I haven't cried in years, but
Yeah.
afterwards I felt good. I was just like, oh, and it felt a relief, and I thought, I'm not I've got a lump of coal in here. I do feel I am emotional, I just need to reconnect with that. So it feels like talking about it, and whether you got, some people might feel like they've got nobody around them that they can do that to. Talking to a random is sometimes easier.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I when I was messaging you on Instagram, I could tell you stuff because I know your story was similar, so I could tell you stuff that you would understand. But when you want to telling someone close to you, you almost feel like you're gonna be looked at differently, and you don't want that to happen. You don't want it to change.
And it's another step. I like, I'm massive on like how anonymity can be of real value. So like, even like when I work with young people in schools, a lot of them, when I say you talking about how you feel to anyone, a lot of them will say, I talk to people on the Xbox, because they're talking to somebody in America who they don't know.
Yeah.
There's real power in that, right? I think there's real power in that. And then you can build up the confidence to be able to talk about it with people that, you have relationships with. I find it easier to talk about my feelings on a stage in front of 500 people than I do to tell my wife about it.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah,
weird. Yeah, I'd be exactly the same.
Because I'm emotionally invested in that relationship, and then so all of my worries and my fears come out. What if she don't love me? What if she thinks differently of me when I say all it? None of that's necessarily conscious, but it's there, right? So I think what you said is incredible, and is just, I echo every single word of it. Of the real courage, the real strength is in saying, I'm not okay here. I don't know what to do here. And it takes so much strength. I mean, the journey I've been on with my wife, in the last few years, of going from stopping saying I'm fine, but then being really angry with her and the kids, to saying, I don't know what I'm feeling. I just feel really anxious at the moment, and I'm nervous and I'm scared and I don't know why. And even as I say that now, it makes my skin crawl thinking about it, right? But being able to say that, then my wife knows what's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, Josh is just miserable and don't want to be around us. It's Josh is dealing with this thing, and then you get the help that you need, right?
My wife used to joke about. My wife used to tell me when there was something wrong with me before I knew myself.
Yeah.
She'd go, "You're not right. You're not right." And I'm just like, "I'm all right. I'm fine. She's saying, "I'm fine. I'm fine." You used to saying it. It's just like, "I'm fine. I'm fine." Take a moment, take that 10 minutes out, and go, "No, I'm not. No.
Yeah.
This is affecting me. This is on my mind. This is the problem." And it's the best thing I think people can do to relieve that burden, because it is a burden and it's a huge weight on your back. To get it off your back is to talk about it. It's such a relief. It makes you. It's therapeutic in ways that it makes you have to verbalize it and admit it first of all, which makes it real. It's no longer kind of hidden inside. You got to deal with it, but then once you've done that, you can start to process it. Is what I've found, like from when we started talking, is I started to process things, and I've gone, okay. And the whole epiphany of the guilt that I was excuse me, guilt that I was carrying around about my dad, I was just like, that wasn't my fault. My fault. These factors made me make the decision that I did to cut him off. I didn't choose to do that. It wasn't just a case of I woke up one morning and went, I don't want to talk to my dad anymore.
Yeah.
It was actions and things that he had done that caused me to do that. I can't carry that blame and that guilt around for something that he did and that I had to do to preserve my mental stability.
Yeah. Incredible. Huw, I could talk to you about this all day. Genuinely, I could. This has been incredible, and I think it will definitely resonate and help with a lot of people. Before we close up, is there anywhere, if people wanted to reach out to you, is there anywhere where they can reach out to you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
It's Huw_Whitethread. Whitethread. So white is in the colour, thread is in cotton. Anybody wants to message me, talk to me. You know, the benefit and the progress that I've made since we connected, I haven't done in years and years and years and years. And just, you know, this year alone has been completely different for me. So if I can help anybody, if anybody relates to anything that I've said, and I just want to talk or verbalize it to somebody who's gone through it and would understand, not going to judge them or make assumptions or that kind of stuff, then please reach out, because I found this so healing. Is the best way to put it.
Amazing. And I'll link all of that stuff in the comments as well to make it really easy for people to do that. Huw, I want to thank you. I've got a lot from this. I really appreciate
I have as well, so thank you. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you. And so hopefully people will reach out, and thanks again.
Cool. Thanks, Josh.